is scheduled to be arraigned today. U.S. attorneys say Shohei Ohtani is a victim and that Mizuhara, Ohtani's friend, or I call him former friend and interpreter, stole more than $16 million from him and lost over $40 million overall in gambling. This is Major League Baseball's statement that we're aware of the charges filed by the U.S. Attorney's Office against Mizuhara for bank fraud. After a thorough federal investigation, according to that investigation, Ohtani is considered a victim of fraud. No evidence that he authorized betting with an illegal bookmaker. Further, the investigation did not find any betting on baseball by Mr. Mizuhara. Given the information disclosed, other information we have already collected, we will wait until resolution of the criminal proceeding to determine whether further investigation is warranted. Again, Mizuhara is scheduled to be arraigned today. I think a lot of people were waiting for something to happen. I had already heard like a few times, like, boy, that really went away. Nothing seems to be happening here. It took a little bit of time. Yeah. But there was skepticism that I think was warranted, given that the way the story broke out and there were multiple reveals of what actually happened. People were skeptical. This seems to align with exactly what Ohtani was saying, where he left himself like really no wiggle room, saying, no, I've been defrauded. I knew nothing about this. This aligns with that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he looks certainly like the victim in this, as he said that he was. Major League Baseball, this is a huge relief for everybody in Major League Baseball, myself included, that Ohtani, really the only thing you could say about Ohtani is that he doesn't know anything about finances. It's, the reason there was so much skepticism is you can't imagine somebody stealing this amount of money from you without knowing about it. And he obviously has financial advisors, but obviously he just didn't know. And the other thing is that, he has poor choice in best friends. Big deal. The guy is a ball player, and that's it. He's not a bettor, and it's a big relief for baseball. Now, baseball is going to interview Ohtani, and they'll try to interview Mizuhara. Mizuhara doesn't have to cooperate as Ohtani does, but, at this point, I could clearly say that he's a victim, and that's it.
Yeah, and I think, too, in this case, obviously, like Ohtani hands his phone over to the FBI and says, the federal investigators, and says, hey, go ahead, look at it. Like, I can't get my kids to hand over their phone for dinner. So, that's a lot of trust in knowing that, hey, I feel like I didn't do anything wrong here. I've been taken advantage of. And sometimes as players, we talked about a little bit about this, you get so hyper-focused on playing your sport that the people that you trust around you to take care of some certain things, guys, it's happened before. This isn't the first time somebody's been taken advantage of. And I think for Shohei to be taken advantage of like this, I mean, it's sad. It's sad on the level for Mizuhara, think about to have that kind of addiction problem that you're now ruining relationships. You're going to go to probably prison, all this kind of stuff. And for Ohtani now to put up a wall, he was always a very private guy. I'm sure there's going to be a little bit more of a wall put up because you're going to lose a lot of trust in some people.
Well, it happens. I've seen it a lot in boxing, where if you're that singular talent and you just want to be able to focus on what you do that makes you great, and you let other people take care of things. And he had his own. He was listed as a de facto manager by the government prosecuting, saying, because this guy was operating as a manager, as a body man, as a translator. He was everything.
The guy was basically a glorified bouncer. I've been in that clubhouse a lot. He just kept people away from him and stayed close to him, and he was within inches of him most of the time, and he just trusted the wrong guy. This guy was not qualified to be a financial advisor. To me, that's crazy. I mean, he did interpret well. He was good at that, but the whole thing, it seemed odd, but now it's resolved at this point.
I remember when my high school gym teacher told me I wasn't going to be good enough to play in the big leagues. I held on to that for a long time.
That's a broad thing as opposed to like there's one simple thing. Let me set this up too. Like, he hit the 2 home runs. He was asked about it, about something that the opposing manager said about him last year. Listen, and here it is. We got from last year. Listen to the question. Listen to the answer.
Hey, John, what about Cal Riley makes him so tough to pitch to?
He's not very tough to pitch to when you execute your pitches. He's hitting 200, but it's. I know he's done damage against us, and I think if you execute, he's obviously got big, damage potential, and he's got a lot of strikeout potential too. And when you execute your pitches, you usually get the job done.
So a manager actually kept it real and answered the question. He's given a weak question. What makes him so tough since he hit 2 home runs? Well, he's not so tough. He's at 200. Like, I like that. That's actual. We're getting a little peek behind the curtain. There's actual analysis. He kept it real there. I don't think he should be punished for that.
Okay, so in that question, he gets asked that instead of it making about Cal Raleigh, might not make it about your lack of execution by your pitchers.
That is kind of what he was saying.
Yeah, but he went at him. He's not that hard to pitch to. So if I'm a player, this game, they always say it, right? There's so much mentality to this game. It's about what's between your your ears. And if you're a player that's just the sleeping dog over there, why wake him? Why stir that guy and give him any kind of extra motivation where he has to now use that tool that has made him a big league baseball player, that tool being the one between his ears, his brain, the motivation that you can draw off of that, you know? And so for Cal Raleigh, now all of a sudden it becomes personal. You made it personal by saying something personal about me.
That he hits 200.
Make it about your own team. Stay in your own dugout.
I think that's what he was saying, but you're right. He did bring it to.
And then look at his numbers, BK, against the Mariners. This is against the Blue Jays. 295, 10, and 820 slugging. Yet, meanwhile, he's an easy out, right, John? Well, it's proving that he's not an east out, at least not against your team. And meanwhile, all his pitchers are going, hey, dude, thanks, man. We used to be able to get away with mistakes against this guy, and now we can't do that.
You know what? But there's so much weak commentary in sports where people are afraid to say anything, and we all get these vanilla answers left and right. I appreciate a guy who actually gave me a real answer. That's what I'm saying. And then when Raleigh comes back, his quote, you see his quote, was essentially saying, well, if you don't have anything to say nice, don't say anything about it. He said, yeah, I know a lot of guys have beef with him in the league, so his comments aren't surprising. I didn't have much to say. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. No, you already said it. Like Cal, you already said something. You said, well, I'm not going to say anything. No, you already said it, that people have beef with him around the league. So that got personal as well.
Well, I know you love this kind of stuff because covering boxing for all these years, you love the little banter.
I don't love the banter. No, I like the actual competition, but I like especially now there's not as many reporters going to baseball games. It's not even like when you were in Boston, I mean, God forbid, where things are actually real and they're asking you questions and they don't just let you off the hook. Now it's like, how tough is he to pitch to? Oh, he's very tough to pitch to, but you know, I don't know what we can do against that guy. I'd rather have a guy keep it real. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. I'd rather have a real answer said. I know he dinged him a little bit, his ego was hurt a little bit, and it motivated him. Good. Doesn't it make this whole sport a little more interesting?
Yeah, well, that's what you want, right? Competition is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Who rises in that moment? I think now you got to have a meeting with your pitchers and be like, hey, guys, you're making me look bad because I said this guy's an easy out and you guys aren't executing anything.
And you're killing us. Yes.
And you're killing us.
Always killing
because
us.
the numbers don't lie. If we're going to play that, the numbers are playing out.
Fair enough. I like a little more interesting sport, that's all. But why? Here's my thing, too. Big picture now.
Yeah.
Why, I wonder, in this age of the Orioles, we're seeing this in real time. If I broaden it out more, I could give you a list of teams that aren't rebuilding, right? And the Orioles did a full rebuild, and it's paying off. Here are the teams that I say should be rebuilding, but are not. They're trying to, as they say, refuel the plane while it's in the air. Mets, Padres, Cardinals all got their comeuppance last year. All are sort of rebuilding, but not really. And the Red Sox are always sort of rebuilding, but not really. And you're kind of stuck in between. I know there's a wild card that you could grab now, and maybe you can get lucky, but wouldn't those teams be better off retrenching and coming back stronger in 3 years?
When I look at that list, I probably say one of those teams maybe who I would put on that list, and that's the St. Louis Cardinals, just for the fact that you're talking a little bit in that smaller market, mid-market team, a team that prides themselves on player development and how
they
well
actually
they've
have the strongest position player base, I think, out of any of those teams.
Yeah, and lacking in the pitching department, so maybe you can trade some of those guys away and load up your pitching staff because, as we're finding out in the first segment, pitching is a coin flip. Who's going to stay healthy and who's going to go out there and develop? Now, when I look at teams on there, the New York Mets should never be rebuilding. You are in New York City with Steve Cohen as your owner with umpteen amounts of money.
But you can get on that treadmill and you're chasing it year after year and not quite getting there.
I understand that. So then that's on your scouting, that's on your general manager, whoever's putting that team together, because they have missed. Like I looked at it. So you had Edwin Diaz, you sign him back as, to a big deal. He gets injured, okay, right? Francisco Lindor, he hit 30-30 last year. He had that rough start to his Mets career, but he's kind of turned around. Then you go like misses on starting pitchers, Verlander, Scherzer, you trade them away. Miss on Starling Marte. You miss on these free agents. Now all of a sudden that trickles down. Right. So you have to hit on them. You have to hit on those guys.
You hear what you're saying? It is the constant chase, the constant opportunity to keep spending money that gets you down that road. Now you start spinning your wheels. It didn't work because you have the opportunity to spend that money. Now David Stearns comes in, and I know he has the pressure of, I know we kind of want to win, but he'd rather rebuild, and do it the quieter way. But in the big markets, I think it's a blessing and a curse. New York and Boston. They say you can't rebuild. I disagree with that. You can, but there's a cost, and you need to explain it and come back stronger in 3 years. I think you spin your wheels more doing it this way.
Well, and also, you can, yes, I understand what you're saying, but if you hit with your free agents, then you allow those players that you've already drafted to develop in the minor leagues. Look at the Texas Rangers, for example, right? A couple years ago, they signed Corey Seager, big, huge deal. Marcus Semien, big deal. John Gray, they go out there. They don't win the World Series. They don't go to where they were looking to go. But what that did was it established now we can go out there and we can sign some more free agents and add those pieces via trade.
But they also were drafting they were doing a rebuild.
But it allowed those guys to develop and come up, right? So those guys were able to develop a little bit. So when they do come up, the Evan Carters.
All right, so wait, just bottom line it. You're saying Padres and Mets and Red Sox, you agree with what they're doing?
I agree with philosophically as an organization. Otherwise, cool. You want to rebuild in those markets?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, okay, drop your ticket prices way down because I'm not going to sit here and pay for you to go and run out and basically tank.
Come on,
that's what's happened.
They're not Red Sox and Mets. They've been.
So if I'm a season ticket holder, and I've paid all this money to watch these players play because you want your team.
I disagree with that philosophy. I think you're talking about sophisticated fans in both those cities that would understand a rebuild. They understand, even if you pull it down to the studs and you start look at Baltimore now.
Yeah, and Baltimore didn't miss, right? All their draft picks: Grayson Rodriguez, Jackson Holliday, Heston Kjerstad, all these guys that are coming to, and the guys that are there, Colin Cowsers. These guys, Adley Rutschman, you didn't miss.
Yeah.
So then the bigger story, more than the rebuild, it might be your scouting department. You got to make sure that and player development. Sure. And otherwise, you can rebuild all you want.
You also don't spend money where you don't need it. You spend money on your team that will be your eventual.
The Pittsburgh Pirates have been rebuilding for 20 years.
They look pretty good this year.
Yeah, this year.
And they understand that. I would pay to see a rebuilding team. I would appreciate if I think the organization is
more
going
like 10 years
for the
Pirates. I shouldn't say 20. The mid 2010s they were doing.
There is a speed bump on the front. There is a speed bump on the front.